So I attended the Generations International Church around 4 p.m. today, along with several other students who are here in Leipzig, Germany with me, studying abroad. It was very interesting. It was fully in English, so that included songs, um, the service, and we did little small groups afterwards, and the conversations were entirely in English. There were people from all over, a lot of different countries. Um, Probably about 80 people at most. Some people are between 40 to 80 people. I don't know, I'm bad at counting. But the speaker was from Michigan, and the other ministers were from Arkansas and Kansas. So they were all three from the states, but a lot of the audience was from Africa or other places in Europe that weren't German speakers, so they chose to go to English-speaking church. I think the speaker did a great job. I forget his name, but he's the one from Michigan. Did a great job identifying with the audience by using props. He brought a hammer to make a point about how you hammer when iron sharpens iron, and just to represent the forge, he used slideshows. He also engaged with the audience by starting with a story, and then he also used a story later. So that was really cool. Language choices that surprised me. I didn't feel very surprised. Honestly, the speaker was very much what I'm used to. I think he was a good speaker. The rest of the service kind of surprised me, but that's not this assignment. Speaker's body language differ from how a similar event would have unfolded in the USA. Honestly, I don't think it did. He seemed to just be giving a sermon as if I was at a church in the United States. If there was some sort of translation where it's like they said something in German then in English, his body language might have differed as he had to wait, but like I said, the entire service was in English. So honestly, I don't think it would be different in the United States for his part. He did a very good job about making eye contact, and it was not different from what I expected. At one point, I know I made eye contact when he said something like, "Has anyone ever heard of such and such?" And I was like nodding yes, and I made eye contact. So that helped me connect with him more on a personal level, even from across the room. So that's pretty cool. That he was very good at making eye contact, but he didn't like just stare me down. He moved across the room. Levels of communication were more or less direct. No, I mean, I feel like overall the levels of communication were about, like I said, what I'm very used to in the United States. And I don't feel like the speaker violated any cultural taboos. At one point, he brought out a file. Like I said, he had props to represent something, and he pretended that he would file one of the audience members' arms to demonstrate that pain is like a part of the process of iron sharpening iron. However, the audience member laughed along and went with it, so I don't feel like that was super taboo, and he didn't actually hurt the audience member. So he did a great job of audience participation. Twice, actually I think 3 times, he asked us to turn to our neighbors and discuss a question, which was really cool. That is something that was different than what I'm used to, but I could see that happening in the United States as well. But I thought that was a very good way to invite the audience to participate along with him. And at one point, he even asked for answers that we discussed with each other, and so people were calling things out, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so like I said, I don't feel like it was super different than what it would be in the United States, but there was a lot of people from all sorts of cultural backgrounds, ethnicities, countries in that room. So as far as presentation, I think the main thing is he wore just like a button-up pants, kind of what you'd expect a Protestant pastor to wear. But one thing that was different about his presentation is he maybe had to adjust a little bit to different things happening. I think there was a man with autism, and at one point he got up and walked around in the middle of the sermon. It wasn't a huge room, and there was a little kid ran by, but I don't know if that really counts as his presentation, but his facial expressions, like he would smile when the kid ran by and stuff, but he wasn't fully thrown off by it. And I don't think that's completely normal. I mean, different than what would happen in the United States. It's just that it felt like because there was such a diverse group there, it was more likely to happen here. So I think if a little kid ran by in the middle of his sermon in the United States, he would have had the same reaction. So I don't think his mannerisms necessarily were different, but like how he had to adjust to the things around him might have been a little bit different. And lastly, how did I interact with the speaker as an audience member? I kind of gave 2 examples of that. At one point, made eye contact with him and nodded that I had, in fact, heard of something that he was mentioning, and then also just choosing to turn to my neighbor and discuss the questions that he asked. So yeah, that was cool. And other people in the audience seemed to do a very good job of that as well. If I was going to speak publicly in this culture, one public speaking skill I'd want to improve on beforehand is probably not saying so much or like, because I know when you're speaking to people who have tons of different linguistic backgrounds, while they are still all English speakers, it can be a lot more hard, say like that, it can be a lot more difficult to follow someone in their train of thought on a speech if they keep interrupting themselves. So that's something I'd like to work on.